Alexander Cole's mansion loomed atop the hill like a marble fortress. People called it the Ice Castle, not only because of the cold gray-white tones of its walls, but because its owner was as frigid as an iceberg. To his staff, Alexander Cole was the kind of man who spoke little, watched everything, and frowned constantly. They whispered among themselves that maybe his facial muscles were permanently stuck in an expression of irritation. Even the longtime butler admitted, if the young master ever smiled, the snow on this hill would probably melt. Alexander didn't care. He was used to caution and distance. At meetings, employees shook like leaves in the wind. At home, servants lowered their heads and scurried past like ghosts. The mansion dazzled with crystal chandeliers and intricately carved ceilings, yet it lacked the warmth of human presence. One afternoon, after a long investment meeting, Alexander strolled into the back garden. The flowers were trimmed to perfection, as though they had stepped straight out of an architectural magazine. He only meant to breathe some fresh air, but his eyes suddenly caught something. In the middle of the lawn was a small figure. A little girl about 6 years old, with her hair tied to the side, wore a simple floral dress and sat, hugging a worn cloth doll. The doll looked completely out of place in the lavish garden, its head crooked, one stitched eye dangling loose, and its dress wrinkled. Alexander frowned slightly. Who would let a child play here? He vaguely remembered that a new maid had moved in the previous week, a young woman with a daughter. This must be that little girl. He was about to turn away when a clear child's voice rang out. Mr. Alexander froze. He wasn't used to being called Mr. Others usually addressed him as Mr. Cole or Sir Cole. The girl looked up innocently and held out the doll. Do you want to play dolls with me? The air seemed to freeze, but this time, not because of him. Alexander was actually unsettled. He, Alexander Cole, the billionaire described by the press as untouchable, was now facing an invitation to play dolls. In his mind, dozens of responses flared. Say no immediately. This is absurd. He was the master of this castle, not a child's playmate. But the girl's eyes were round, bright, and expectant. Unlike the eyes of the adults around him, always calculating, fearful, or flattering, hers were pure, innocent, untouched by the dread of Mr. Cole. Alexander cleared his throat, intending to dismiss her. I'm busy, and yet, strangely, his feet wouldn't move. For a fleeting moment, he realized how accustomed he'd become to silence. And today, a single naive invitation made the air feel entirely different. The girl kept patiently holding out the doll. My name is Lily, and this is Lucy, my doll. If you hold Lucy, you'll feel much better. Alexander stared at the ragged doll. Better was not a word in his vocabulary, but it was hard to refuse such a tiny girl, her hair fluttering in the wind, her eyes shining. And in that instant, the ice castle seemed to crack, just a little. Chapter 2. The New Maid and Her Constant Worries. A few weeks earlier, Clara had taken a deep breath as she stepped through the tall iron gates of the Cole mansion. The fresh morning air filled her lungs, but instead of comfort, she felt a heavy weight pressing down on her shoulders. Her steps slowed, her hand tightening around that of her 6-year-old daughter, Lily. The little hand, however, swung freely without a trace of worry. We'll be fine, Lily, Clara whispered, as much to reassure her daughter as to soothe herself. She was a single mother, recently hired as a full-time maid for Mr. Alexander Cole, the notoriously cold billionaire. To Clara, this job was both a blessing and a threat. A blessing because the salary far exceeded any cleaning job she'd ever had, enough to pay rent and send Lily to school. A threat because she had heard endless rumors that the master of the house was unapproachable, that no one dared to speak casually to him, and that even the smallest mistake could mean instant dismissal. Clara knew it all too well. A woman like her, starting with nothing, had very few choices. This was the only job that would allow her to raise her daughter properly. And so, a constant fear gnawed at her. Fear that Lily's playfulness would cause trouble. Fear of leaving a smudge on the crystal table. Fear that one misstep could cost her everything. On their first morning in the mansion, Clara led Lily into the back garden. The garden was so large that Lily gasped the moment she set foot in it. Mom, this yard is big enough for me and Lucy to open an amusement park. Lucy, the worn cloth doll Lily always carried, had been introduced as a member of the family. The little girl hugged Lucy tightly to her chest, her eyes sparkling with delight. Clara bent down and whispered, "Do you remember what I told you? You can only play in this garden. No running into the main house, no climbing stairs, no making noise. And—" "I know already," Lily chirped quick and loud. "I'll be on my best behavior. Lucy will too." Clara smiled, but her heart still fluttered with unease. She brushed Lily's hair back and reminded her once more, "Don't disturb anyone, especially Mr. Cole." As Clara returned to her duties, she walked along the long hallway of the mansion. Each step on the polished wooden floor echoed clop, clop, as if reminding her to be cautious. By chance, she saw Alexander Cole descending the grand staircase. He wore a flawless gray suit, moving with slow, deliberate steps. The light from the tall windows behind him, casting a sharp glow over his cold features. Clara quickly pressed herself to the side, bowing deeply. He passed by without so much as a glance. His eyes stayed fixed ahead, as though the world around him was mere decoration. Clara only dared to lift her head once he had gone, her heart still pounding. For a moment she thought, "He looks like a living statue. Handsome, yes, but far too cold." The housekeeper, Edith, had once told her, "Don't expect to see the master smile. I've been here 10 years and you could count it on one hand and still have fingers left." Looking at him now, Clara found that easy to believe. She bent down to polish the long dining table, but a stray thought slipped in. Could someone like him ever actually feel joy? In contrast to the tense silence of the mansion, the garden was filled with small bursts of laughter. Lily sat cross-legged on the grass, with Lucy perched neatly across from her. She was hosting a tea party with pebbles, fallen petals, and a plastic bottle cap serving as a teacup. "Lucy, have some rose petal cake." Lily held out a flower petal. "It's absolutely delicious." Passing by, Clara sighed. "Lily, remember to keep quiet." "I wasn't loud," Lily whispered, then blinked up at her. "Mom, do you think the cold mister will ever come to the garden to play with us?" "Who?" "The man who walks around with that serious face." Clara almost laughed out loud. Honestly, cold mister was both fitting and a little frightening. But looking into Lily's bright eyes, she knew her daughter felt no fear at all. Children were different. While adults saw an impenetrable wall of ice, Lily only saw a mister who might sit down for tea at any moment. "Don't say things like that." Clara patted her head. "He's the master." "But masters can drink tea too, right?" Lily teased, her voice mischievous. Clara shook her head and walked back inside. She found her daughter's innocence amusing, but the constant anxiety in her heart remained. She told herself, "As long as Lily stays quiet and doesn't draw attention, I can keep this job." That afternoon, while polishing the window frames, Clara caught sight of Alexander standing on the second-floor balcony, staring into the distance. He stood so still that Clara thought he wasn't a man at all, but a stone statue placed there for symmetry. Then Lily appeared in the garden, running with Lucy in her arms. Her cheerful laughter floated upward. Alexander tilted his head ever so slightly. Just a small movement, but Clara noticed it. For the first time, he didn't look entirely like a lifeless statue. His eyes shifted, barely, but enough for Clara to see. Startled, she turned away quickly, unwilling to look longer. Still, a thought flickered in her mind. Maybe he isn't as cold as everyone says. Late that night, when mother and daughter were back in their room, Lily sat on the bed, whispering to Lucy, "Mom, today I saw the cold mister looking at Lucy." "You're imagining things again?" Clara smiled. "No, I really did. I think he wants to play dolls too, but he just hasn't dared yet." Clara chuckled, pulling the blanket over her. "Go to sleep, my little dream doctor. But tomorrow I'll invite him for real tea," Lily declared firmly before closing her eyes and drifting off. Clara lingered by the bedside, gazing at her daughter's peaceful face. She sighed softly. That ever-present fear still weighed on her. If Lily really did approach the master, would trouble follow? Yet hearing her daughter's steady breaths, her heart softened. After all, Lily was just a child, And perhaps it was that very innocence that could melt a little of the coldness inside the ice castle. The garden glowed golden in the late afternoon, sunlight glittering through the rose trees. Alexander frowned at Lily's invitation to hold her doll, Lucy, not out of irritation, but out of confusion. He, a billionaire juggling endless contracts, meetings, and major events, was now being asked by a child to hold a doll? His mind instantly produced countless reasons to refuse. I don't have time. It's not appropriate. This isn't something grown men do. But his body betrayed him. His feet refused to move, rooted to the stone path. Come on, mister, sit here. Lily patted the empty space on the stone bench. This spot's free. Alexander's eyes flicked around the garden, making sure no one was watching this bizarre scene. He exhaled slowly, then took a step forward. It felt as if he were about to sign the most difficult contract of his life. When he finally sat down, Lily squealed with delight. Perfect! Now Lucy will say hello to you. She lifted the doll up and placed it right into his hands. In that moment, Alexander froze. The doll weighed almost nothing, just scraps of worn cloth sewn together. Yet in his hands it felt heavy, as if he were holding a bomb that could go off at any second. You have to hold her gently. Lucy is very fussy, Lily whispered conspiratorially. Alexander looked up, meeting the little girl's trusting gaze. He couldn't bring himself to refuse, and so the hands that were used to sign billion-dollar deals were now holding a patched-up rag doll. He tried to speak. Yeah. Just one word, dry and flat, like every word he spoke to adults. But Lily's face lit up as if he had just agreed to a lifelong friendship with Lucy. At that moment, Clara appeared in the distance. She had been carrying a basket of clean laundry to hang outside, but when she turned the corner, she froze in shock. There was Alexander Cole, the infamous, cold, untouchable master of the house, sitting neatly on a stone bench, holding a ragged doll, face to face with her daughter. Clara's heart jumped into her throat. Dear God, what had Lily done? She rushed forward, pale and panicked. I'm so sorry, Mr. Cole. Truly sorry. She's just a child. She doesn't know any better. I'll correct her immediately. She reached to pull Lily away, but Alexander's low voice cut through, short and steady. It's fine. Clara froze, her eyes wide. She must have misheard. This cold master just said it's fine? Alexander lowered his gaze to the doll in his hands and added, his tone flat. But keep it clean. Clara stood speechless, not because of the odd request, keep the doll clean, but because of his attitude. No shouting, no scowling, just acceptance. For her, that alone was unbelievable. Yes, of course, I'll stitch it up properly, Clara stammered while Lily beamed. See, Mom? I told you, Mr. likes Lucy. Alexander turned away, placing the doll back into Lily's arms. His face remained cold, but Clara couldn't help noticing the faintest flush of red on his ears. After Alexander left, Clara sat down beside her daughter and sighed. Lily, how could you pull the master into playing with dolls? Because he needs a friend, Lily said firmly, hugging Lucy close. I think he's really sad. Sad? Clara blinked. Sweetheart, he's rich. People like him don't get sad. But he never smiles, and people who never smile must be sad. Lily answered simply. Clara fell silent. That childlike remark tugged at her heart. Later in his study, Alexander sank into his leather chair, opening the newspaper but failing to read a single word. The scene replayed in his mind. The wide eyes, the bright smile of the little girl, and the strange, unfamiliar feeling of holding an old doll in his hands. He frowned, scolding himself. Absurd. I'm Alexander Cole. How could I let a child lead me around like that? And yet deep down, he knew. The brief moment had cracked a small corner of the icy wall inside him. That evening, as Clara stitched up Lucy's torn seam, Lily chattered on. Mom, he held Lucy like she was a real baby. So careful. Stop exaggerating, Clara chuckled softly. No, I saw it. Lily propped her chin on her hands. I think he's only cold on the outside, but inside he's really warm. Clara's hands stilled for a moment. She remembered the afternoon scene. Alexander sitting awkwardly, then muttering, "It's fine." Yes, there had been something unusual about it. She thought to herself, maybe, maybe the child wasn't wrong after all. Ever since that doll-playing incident, Alexander Cole had developed a new habit. Every afternoon, right as the sun tilted low over the rose garden, he would walk outside with a newspaper in hand. On the surface, he was still the same Alexander, cold and composed, crisp shirt, perfectly knotted tie, newspaper held as if he were about to analyze global markets. Yet the pages of that paper rarely made it past the second one, because though he would never admit it, his ears were tuned to the sound of a child's laughter somewhere in the garden. Lily, as always, was hosting her tea shop under the apple tree. But now she treated Alexander as a regular customer. Every time he stepped out, Lily would wave cheerfully, "Mister, today my shop has new cakes." Alexander would glance over, trying to feign indifference. "I'm reading the paper." "Well, you can read while eating." Lily shot back, quick as ever, unfazed by his stern tone. Sometimes Alexander folded the newspaper and sat on a stone bench a few steps away. He never truly joined in, only sat in silence, observing. But that very silence was enough to leave Clara watching from the kitchen window, quietly astonished. She knew this man never allowed anyone to intrude on his private world. One afternoon, Lily suddenly ran over, her eyes sparkling. "You know what? I've given you a nickname." Alexander blinked, frowning slightly. "A nickname?" "Yep," Lily nodded vigorously. "You're the cold mister who's warm inside." Alexander froze. It had been a long time since anyone had said something so strange to him. Adults usually described him as strict, intimidating, or difficult. But this child thought he was warm inside. "Why?" he asked before he could stop himself. "Because you don't smile. Your face is always serious." Lily put her hands on her hips, tilting her head thoughtfully. "But when you played with Lucy, you were so gentle. I think inside you're warm, like a winter blanket." Alexander was stunned. He wasn't used to people describing him like that, least of all a 6-year-old girl. He wanted to object, but the words caught in his throat and turned into a dry throat clearing instead. "Think whatever you want," he muttered, pulling the paper up to cover part of his face. But the tips of his ears flushed red, enough to make Lily giggle. "See? I told you I was right." That evening, the air grew crisp. Clara was outside hanging towels to dry, glancing toward the garden every so often to check on her daughter. After selling out of her pretend cakes to Lucy and her special guest, Lily grew tired and slumped against the stone bench. Her head drooped, her small arms still clutching her doll tightly. Alexander sat a few steps away, pretending to read. When he looked up, he saw Lily fast asleep, lips moving faintly as if she were still dreaming of another tea party. He hesitated, his gaze flickering. In his life, Alexander had commanded thousands of employees and signed deals with global corporations, but he had never once tucked a child in. Finally, he removed his jacket and walked toward her. Every movement was slow, deliberate, as if afraid to disturb a fragile dream. He draped the jacket gently over Lily's small body, adjusting it carefully around her shoulders. At that exact moment, Clara stepped out onto the porch. She froze, her heart pounding. Before her eyes was a sight she never thought possible. Alexander Cole, the cold, unapproachable man no one dared near, was leaning down, quietly, tenderly, caring for her daughter. Wrapped in his oversized jacket, Lily looked like a little princess in a cloak. Clara felt her eyes sting with tears, but reason pulled her back. "No, don't fool yourself. He only pities an innocent child. Between us, there's a gulf as wide as earth and sky." She quietly lifted Lily into her arms and carried her inside. Her chest swirled with conflicting feelings, touched by the sight of Alexander she had just witnessed, yet troubled that such a sight could spark hopes she dared not allow. When Lily woke, the sky had already darkened. She rubbed her eyes, then noticed the expensive jacket draped over her and giggled. "Lucy, looks like the cold mister knows how to be a blanket too." Clara quickly scooped her up, soothing her while whispering, "Don't say things like that. If the master hears, I'll be in trouble." "But he's nice." Lily scrunched her nose. "I don't think he's scary at all." Clara hugged her daughter tightly. an unnamed fear stirring in her chest, because she knew Lily's innocence might be enough to melt the ice around Alexander. But if that wall truly cracked, would they still be safe in this castle? That night, alone in his study, Alexander sat in silence. His jacket had been returned to its place, but it still carried the faint scent of sun and grass. He remembered the moment he had laid it over the child's shoulders. A strange warmth had risen inside him, something he hadn't felt in a very long time. He leaned on his hand, letting out a quiet sigh. Cold, but warm inside. He repeated Lily's nickname. For the first time, Alexander didn't feel offended by someone's judgment of him. Perhaps the ice wall around him really had begun to crack. That afternoon, the sky was crystal clear. A gentle breeze swept through the rose bushes, carrying their sweet fragrance. Lily was busy preparing what she called the grandest doll tea party ever. On the small wooden table set out on the porch, she arranged everything. Colorful plastic cups, a chipped pink toy teapot, pretend cookies made of Play-Doh, and of course, the most important guest, her doll, Lucy. "Mom, today the cold mister has to sit down and have tea with us," Lily announced, her eyes sparkling. Clara nearly dropped the towel she was folding. "Good heavens, Lily, do you really think the master would sit down for plastic tea with you?" "I know he will," Lily nodded firmly. "He's warm inside." Clara gave a helpless laugh, unsure how to respond. But just then, Alexander stepped out into the garden, perfectly dressed in his suit, his face as cold as ever. "Mister," Lily waved like she was greeting an honored guest. "The tea party is starting. You're the special guest. You can't say no." Alexander froze. His eyes flicked over the quirky setup, then down to Lily's expectant face. It was only a few seconds, but it felt like a battle was raging inside his head. At last, he cleared his throat, walked over and, against all odds, sat down. The chair was a little too small for his tall frame in that expensive suit, making the scene both awkward and oddly comical. Alexander picked up a tiny purple plastic cup, his long fingers pinching its minuscule handle, looking very much like a lion forced to sip water from a toy dish. "Please enjoy some tea," Lily said formally, pouring tea from the pink toy pot, which was really just bottled water. Alexander lifted the cup and took a sip. His expression stayed serious, as if he were attending a board meeting, though a faint trace of embarrassment flickered in his eyes. He gave a small nod. "Quite unique." "See, Lucy," Lily cheered, turning to her doll. "He likes my tea." From the porch, Clara gaped at the sight. She could hardly believe her eyes. The infamously cold master of the house was now sitting primly at a tiny table, lifting a purple plastic cup across from her daughter. "Mom," Lily called, "come sit too. I made special cookies today." Clara waved her off quickly. "No, I still have work to do." "No way. The tea party needs 3 grown-ups and 1 doll, or it's not complete," Lily declared. After much pleading, Clara reluctantly joined them, taking the empty chair. As soon as she sat down, Lily shoved a green cup into her hands. "Here, you're the guest of honor. Drink." Clara obediently took a sip of water, but when she glanced sideways, she caught sight of Alexander trying very seriously to eat one of the Play-Doh cookies Lily had offered. He only tapped it lightly with his teeth, then gave a solemn nod. Not bad. The scene was too much. Clara burst into laughter, the sound ringing bright through the quiet garden. For the first time in front of the master, she didn't wear that worried, guarded look. Her smile came naturally, so naturally that even she was surprised. Alexander stiffened slightly. He looked at her, his deep black eyes flashing with something hard to define. He was used to fake smiles, forced, flattering, polite. But this one was genuine, warm. In that brief moment, Alexander realized the mansion was echoing with laughter for the first time. Not the shallow kind from lavish parties, but something real, ordinary, and close to the heart. And it softened something inside him. The tea party carried on with all the formal rituals Lily invented. Everyone must clink cups 3 times to become friends. Lucy must have the seat of honor, and whoever finishes their tea gets a pretend candy prize. And so the ice-cold billionaire found himself clinking plastic cups with a child and her maid. He kept his face deadly serious, which only made Clara fight to hide her smile. Mister, Lily leaned in suddenly, whispering like she was sharing a big secret. You should smile. You'll look more handsome. Alexander's eyes widened, his ears turning bright red. He coughed quickly, lifting the plastic cup to hide his awkwardness. Clara noticed and couldn't help but smile again. This time it wasn't a surprise. It was a gentle warmth spreading inside her. In the glow of the setting sun, surrounded by the fragrance of roses, 3 people and 1 doll sat around a small table, creating a scene that was simple yet full of heart. And at that very moment, the ice wall in the castle seemed to crack wide open. That evening's dinner began with an invitation that startled both Clara and Lily. The messenger was none other than the housekeeper, Edith. She appeared at the staff room door, speaking in her usual stern tone. Mr. Cole would like to invite you and young Lily to dinner in the main dining room. Clara nearly dropped the spoon in her hand. She stared at Edith wide-eyed, stammering, Did I hear you right? You did not, Edith emphasized, then lowered her voice, as if she herself could hardly believe it. In 10 years, this is the first time I've ever heard the master extend such an invitation. Lily, however, squealed as though she'd just won the lottery. Mom, the cold mister invited us to dinner. Can Lucy come too? Clara held her head in her hands. She knew this dinner was no simple affair. In the world of the wealthy, even a dinner invitation could mean scrutiny, a test, or a warning. But looking at her daughter's eager little face, Clara couldn't bring herself to say no. The main dining room sparkled under the chandelier's light, a long table draped in white linen and glittering with rows of silverware. 3 seats were prepared, one for Alexander, one for Clara, and a small high chair for Lily. Clara was so flustered she didn't dare look the master in the eye as she entered. Alexander was already there, wearing a simple white shirt, his tie loosened. His gaze swept briefly over mother and daughter, then lingered on the doll Lily clutched tightly. He said nothing, only gave a slight nod, gesturing for them to sit. Good evening, mister, Lily chirped brightly, shattering the heavy atmosphere. Lucy says good evening, too. Clara almost choked, but Alexander only glanced at the doll, his lips twitching. Whether it was a smile or just a reflex, no one could tell. Dinner began. Course after course was served. Creamy mushroom soup, roast beef and wine sauce, crisp toast. Clara sat straight-backed, trying to wield the silverware as gracefully as possible, terrified her daughter might spill something on the pristine tablecloth. But it was Lily who lightened the mood. She ate happily, whispering now and then to Lucy as though rating the dishes like a critic. This soup is yummy. Lucy gives it 7.5 points because there's not enough toast. Across the table, Alexander watched the child's innocent chatter. Perhaps for the first time, dinner in this cold mansion was not filled only with the clinking of knives and forks, but also with the babbling of a child. After a few moments of silence, he turned to Clara and asked bluntly, Where is your husband? The sudden question made Clara freeze, her fork trembling in her hand. She looked up and saw his expression was serious, but not disdainful. He left. Her voice dropped low. When Lily was only 2, he walked out and never came back. Her hand tightened unconsciously. She had never spoken of this to anyone here, but under his steady gaze, the words slipped out. I've worked whatever jobs I could, at diners, cleaning houses, anything. I just wanted Lily to grow up never lacking love, even if it was only from me. Hearing her name, Lily looked up and grinned. But I don't lack anything. I have Mom, Lucy, and now I have Mr. too. Clara flushed red, quickly laying a hand on her daughter's shoulder to hush her. But Alexander didn't scold. Instead, his eyes flickered faintly. He set down his fork and leaned back. I grew up without parents around either. Clara looked at him in surprise. They were busy. His voice was even, but his eyes far away. Busy making money, busy with parties, busy with everything they thought was important. I had the best schools, the most expensive toys, but never once a family dinner. He fell silent for a moment, lost in some distant memory. That's why I hate long dining tables. They always feel empty. The room quieted, the only sound the soft clink of cutlery. Clara felt a surge of sympathy. She had always thought Alexander was nothing more than a cold statue without emotions. But now she saw, behind that icy exterior was a childhood marked by loneliness, not unlike the abandonment she and Lily had endured. After dinner, while Lily ran to the garden to play, Clara stayed behind to tidy up. Alexander remained at the table, idly turning his wine glass, his voice low. Raising a child alone must be hard. It is, Clara gave a faint smile. But with Lily, every sacrifice feels worth it. She's the reason I keep going. Alexander looked up. In her eyes there was no self-pity, only quiet, steadfast love. He spoke slowly. Maybe we're more alike than I thought. Clara froze. She never imagined the coal billionaire would say such a thing, but deep inside she knew he meant it. Two people from worlds apart, yet bound by the same loneliness. That night, as Clara tucked Lily into bed, the little girl whispered, "Mom, I don't think the cold mister is cold anymore." His eyes looked sad, but when he looked at us, they were warm. Clara smoothed her daughter's hair, her heart swelling with an emotion she couldn't quite name. She knew the gulf between her and Alexander was vast, yet for one fleeting dinner, they had truly shared their hidden pain, and that fragile thread of understanding was enough to bring warmth into the ice castle. In high society, whispers often carried more weight than the truth, and once a rumor began, it spread faster than a summer wind sweeping across the hills. One morning, as Alexander stepped into the company boardroom, he felt the stares of every member fix on him. Normally, they kept their distance from his cold presence, but today there was something new behind their restraint: curiosity. Henry, a longtime shareholder, cleared his throat and spoke first. "Mr. Cole, perhaps I shouldn't meddle in your personal affairs, but lately the tabloids and a few smaller news outlets have been publishing stories that you've been enchanted by a maid in your mansion." The word enchanted sent a ripple through the room. Alexander's brow arched, his gaze sharp as a blade. "Cheap gossip," his reply was curt, but the others didn't look convinced. A younger director chimed in. "This could affect the company's reputation, especially if that person has ulterior motives." Alexander's grip on his pen tightened, though he said nothing more. For a moment, an image flickered through his mind. Clara and Lily sitting at the dinner table just nights before. Ulterior motives? The thought made him angry, but also uneasy. The rumors didn't stop at the boardroom. At glittering soirees where champagne glasses clinked endlessly, the story of Mr. Cole and the Maid became the hottest topic. A cold billionaire, undone by an ordinary woman. Someone sneered. "I heard she even brought her daughter to live in the mansion," another whispered. "Obviously a scheme. Poor women always want to climb up." Among those fanning the flames was Vivian, Alexander's cousin. Famous for her beauty, wealth, and ambition, Vivian had long harbored hopes that Alexander would make a suitable marriage to strengthen the family's influence. One afternoon, Vivian appeared at the mansion, flawless makeup in place, lips curved in a knowing smile. She deliberately crossed paths with Clara in the hallway, her voice sweet as honey but sharp as a knife. "How clever of you, Clara. From servant to dining at the same table as my cousin. I must say, you've got talent." Clara froze, heat rising to her face. I'm just doing my job." "Of course." Vivian tilted her head, eyes gleaming with scorn. "But that's not what people are saying. They call you the maid with magic? Isn't that amusing?" Clara clenched the rag in her hand, the words stabbing like needles. She wasn't one for arguments, but Vivian's taunts seemed to strip away every ounce of her dignity and effort. That night, after Lily had gone to bed, Clara sat by the window, eyes brimming with tears. She thought about her daughter's future. If the rumors continued, Lily would suffer. The child was innocent, yet she would be forced to bear the cruelty of gossip. Clara whispered to herself, "Maybe we should leave." The words tore at her heart. She didn't want to go, not from this place where, for the first time in years, her daughter had laughed so freely. But a mother's love outweighed all else. If leaving was the only way to protect Lily, she would do it. Meanwhile, Alexander found no peace. He returned home late and stood for a long time at his office window. The garden lights cast sharp lines across his face, revealing a rare tension. For the first time in his life, Alexander felt genuine fear. Fear that if the rumors persisted, Clara would leave. And if she left, Lily would vanish from the mansion too. He saw the scenes replay in his mind. Lily's giggles, Clara's eyes shining at dinner, the doll tea parties with colorful plastic cups. If it all disappeared, this mansion would return to being the true ice castle, cold, empty, and utterly alone. His hand tightened on the window frame. He had never admitted such things to himself before, but tonight he knew. He didn't want to lose them. The next morning, Clara carried a resignation letter. She planned to slip it to Edith, then quietly take Lily away before things grew worse. But as she entered the hallway, Alexander was already there. His gaze was as sharp and cold as ever, but beneath it lay something else. Worry. "Where are you going?" His voice was low, steady. Clara faltered, hiding the letter behind her back. I just think staying here will cause you trouble. The rumors outside, they've gone too far. I don't want Lily dragged into it." Alexander was silent, a silence so heavy it filled the corridor. Then he stepped closer, his eyes locking on hers. "Don't make that decision on your own." Clara looked up, her heart racing. In that moment, she didn't see an untouchable ice wall. She saw a man struggling with the fear of loss for the very first time. Clara lowered her head, her hand tightening around the letter. She hadn't yet chosen her path. But deep inside, the image of Alexander standing there, cold on the surface, yet with eyes trembling, left a mark she couldn't forget. Outside, rumors raged on like stormy waves. But within the mansion, the real turbulence didn't come from the world beyond. It came from the emotions growing stronger between people who never should have been able to belong to each other. Still following the story? If this found you outside Soul Stories, welcome home. Comment below, what story do you want to hear next? Clara had spent the entire night in thought. Outside, the rumors spread heavier and darker, like storm clouds covering the sky. She knew she was just an ordinary woman, powerless against such poisonous whispers. But what terrified her most wasn't her own reputation. It was Lily. Her innocent little girl could be dragged into the whirlwind of gossip simply because she was the daughter of a maid living under the roof of Billionaire Cole. That morning, Clara quietly folded clothes into their old battered suitcase. Her hands trembled, not from regret over their meager belongings, but from the weight pressing down on her heart. Lily was still asleep, clutching Lucy tightly in her small arms. Clara looked at her daughter and whispered softly, "Forgive me, sweetheart. We have to leave." She believed she was doing the right thing, leaving this place to protect Lily. But children often sense more than adults realize. As soon as Clara snapped the suitcase shut, Lily stirred awake. She rubbed her eyes and froze at the sight before her. "Mom, where are we going?" Clara forced a smile, sitting down to smooth her daughter's hair. "We're going back to our old boarding house, darling. This place isn't right for us." "No!" Lily shot up, clutching Lucy tight. "I'm not leaving." "Lily, I don't want to leave, mister." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "He's my friend. He promised to keep Lucy clean." Clara's throat closed. She knew that to Lily, Alexander wasn't just the cold mister anymore. He had become a part of her childhood. "All right." Clara wiped her daughter's tears. "If you want, we'll go say goodbye to him first." Alexander was standing in the living room, ready to leave for work, when he saw them enter. Clara with the suitcase, Lily clutching her doll, eyes red and puffy. He froze. His chest tightened instantly. He knew what was happening. Clara bowed her head, her voice trembling. "Thank you for giving me the chance to work here, but it's time for us to leave." Before Alexander could answer, Lily let go of her mother's hand and ran straight to him, wrapping her little arms around his leg. With tear-streaked cheeks, she choked out, "I don't want to leave you. You're my friend." The words hit Alexander straight in the heart. For years, no one had ever been allowed past the ice wall he had built, and now a tiny child was calling him friend. He crouched down, his large hands gently circling the small figure. His voice was rough, unsteady. "I don't want you to go either." Lily sobbed, burying her face in his shoulder. Lucy, squished between them, became a silent witness to the moment. Clara stood frozen, gripping the suitcase handle tight. Tears welled up and spilled down onto the polished wooden floor. She had never imagined she would see such a sight. Alexander Cole, the cold, proud man who had always kept the world at arm's length, was now holding her daughter, showing such raw vulnerability and hunger for connection. In that instant, Clara understood. He had truly changed. Not out of duty, not out of pity, but because his heart had been touched. Alexander looked up, his eyes meeting Clara's. No longer the gaze of a master to his servant, but that of a man unwilling to lose something precious he had just found. "Stay," his voice was firm. "I don't care what people say. But—" Clara shook her head, her voice quivering. "You know the difference between us." "I know," he cut her off, "and that's exactly why I don't want you to face it alone." Clara's breath caught. His words struck like a shield, solid and protective. That morning, the suitcase never left the mansion. Instead, it was set back in Clara's small room. Lily couldn't stop smiling, chattering away to Lucy. "See? I told you. He won't let us leave." Clara sat on the bed, her eyes still damp, her heart swelling with both relief and fear. Relief because Alexander had opened his heart. Fear because, from this moment on, she was no longer just a maid. The bond between them was undeniable now, and that bond could draw even greater storms. In his study, Alexander stood by the window, gazing down at the rose garden. For the first time in years, he felt he had something worth holding on to. Not wealth, not reputation, but a family, something he had never truly had. He clenched his fist, whispering as though making a vow. "I won't let them go." After that morning when they almost left but stayed, the atmosphere inside the mansion shifted. The heavy silence that had always filled the halls was no longer constant. Instead, new sounds appeared. Lily's endless chatter, Clara's occasional bursts of laughter, and even Alexander's faint sighs. Not cold anymore, but strangely human. One weekend afternoon, Alexander spoke unexpectedly during lunch. "This afternoon, we're going out." Clara looked up in surprise. "Oh, you mean—" "Central Park." His words were brief, but his gaze landed on Lily, as if the decision had been made for her. Lily squealed with joy, hugging Lucy tight and twirling around. "Mom, Mister's taking us out to play." Clara blinked, uncertain, but eventually nodded. She knew that saying no would only break Lily's heart. The park was crowded, the complete opposite of the mansion's stillness. Alexander wore a simple shirt, but his presence still made passers-by turn to stare. Yet this time, the cold billionaire wasn't walking alone. He was accompanied by a woman and a lively little girl at his side. Lily tugged him toward the balloon stand. "Mister, I want the pink one." Alexander had never bargained in his life, and now he awkwardly pulled out his wallet, paying with a bill worth dozens of times the balloon's price. The vendor gawked, but Lily hugged her pink balloon, beaming. "Thank you, mister. Lucy loves it too." Later, they stopped at an ice cream shop. Lily chose vanilla, Clara chose strawberry, and Alexander, unfamiliar with treats like this, was pushed into trying chocolate by Lily. "Here, mister, just one spoonful." She held up the tiny plastic spoon. Alexander frowned faintly but leaned down. Before he could prepare, Lily's too full spoon left a streak of chocolate right at the corner of his mouth. "Oh no!" Lily burst into laughter. "You've got ice cream on you!" Clara covered her mouth, but her laugh escaped anyway. In front of her was Alexander Cole, usually so stern, untouchable, sitting stiffly with chocolate smeared on his face like a clumsy little boy. "Don't laugh," he muttered, but the twitch at the corner of his lips betrayed him. Clara quickly grabbed a napkin and leaned in to wipe his face. The gesture was so natural that both froze for a heartbeat. Alexander's eyes deepened as they met hers, while Clara dropped her gaze, heart racing. The afternoon passed with simple joys. Lily riding the carousel horses, sliding down playground slides, and running across the grass with her balloon bouncing behind her. Alexander, once used only to boardrooms and sterile contracts, now followed the sound of a child's carefree laughter. From behind, Clara watched them. The picture before her resembled a family portrait. A father, a little awkward, but trying, a mother quietly looking on, and a child glowing with innocence in the middle. Her heart skipped. It had been so long since she had felt this. Joy mixed with fear. Joy because her daughter was finally receiving the affection she had always lacked. Fear because the gap between her and Alexander was still impossibly wide. By twilight, they rested under a tree. Exhausted, Lily leaned her head on Clara's shoulder, still clutching her balloon and Lucy. Alexander looked at the mother and child for a long moment before saying softly, "I never thought I'd be sitting in a park like this." "Why not?" Clara asked gently. "Because I thought things like this weren't meant for me." His gaze lingered on Lily. "But today I realized I've missed too much." Clara said nothing, but she knew his words were true. The ice wall around him wasn't just cracked anymore, it was slowly breaking apart. On the way home, Lily held both their hands, skipping and singing a school song as they walked through the busy streets. To anyone passing by, they appeared to be a small family. Clara's chest tightened. A part of her longed to keep this moment forever. Another part whispered, "Don't fool yourself, Clara. He's Alexander Cole, and you're just a maid." She turned her face away, hiding a smile, and a tear that had slipped down her cheek. In the car, Lily tilted her head sleepily and asked innocently, "Mister, can we go out again tomorrow?" Alexander stiffened. He had never imagined there could be a tomorrow for things like this. But looking into her eager eyes, he heard himself reply, "Maybe, yes." Lily cheered, then quickly dozed off, her balloon still in hand. Clara tucked a coat around her, then looked up, only to meet Alexander's gaze. Neither spoke, but both knew. Something was growing between them, quietly yet undeniably strong. The rumors about the maid who bewitched the billionaire hadn't even died down when another wave crashed in, stronger, crueler. It began in gossip columns and quickly spread through the upper class. Alexander Cole reunites with his ex-lover. Clara was only a temporary gold digger. Clara overheard it while shopping in a small market. A group of wealthy women, designer bags on their arms, glanced at her with pity and disdain. One of them said aloud, "A poor woman with a child dreaming above her station? She'll be replaced sooner or later." Clara bit her lip hard, clutching Lily close to her chest. Shame burned inside her, but she kept walking, head bowed. That afternoon, a guest arrived at the mansion. The grand doors opened and Vivian, Alexander's cousin, personally led in a sophisticated woman. She wore a turquoise silk dress, her wavy brown hair gleaming, high heels tapping elegantly against the marble floor. It was Isabella Hartley, the woman once closely tied to Alexander. The daughter of a powerful financial dynasty, she was renowned for both her beauty and sharp intellect. Years ago, they had been considered the golden couple before they broke up. "Alex," Isabella smiled as though no time had passed. "I'm back." Alexander stood in the foyer, his expression darkening. He wasn't surprised, but neither was he pleased. "We need to talk." His tone was cold, gesturing toward a private sitting room. At that moment, Clara happened to be passing with a tray of tea. She froze at the sight. Alexander walking beside Isabella, the two close, Isabella's face glowing with delight. To Clara, it looked like the perfect picture of a match made in heaven. Her chest tightened. The cruel voices from the market echoed in her mind. "You're only a temporary distraction." Her hands shook around the tray, but she forced herself to walk on without looking back. In the sitting room, Alexander faced Isabella directly, his tone sharp. "Isabella, I don't want any relationship with you. The past is over." Isabella tilted her head, lips curling. "I know. But Alex, do you really mean to attach yourself to a poor maid? Don't you see she's using you? That's enough." His voice was steely, eyes cold. "Clara is not what you think," Isabella smirked, rising to her feet. She stepped closer, laying her delicate hand on his arm. "You're too naive. Look at me, Alex. You and I belong to the same world." Alexander was about to push her hand away when the door opened slightly. Clara stepped in, holding a folder Alexander had left in the hall. And what she saw froze her in place, Isabella leaning close, her hand resting on Alexander's arm. "I'm sorry," Clara whispered, setting the file down quickly. "I didn't mean to intrude." Isabella's smile widened as she deliberately tightened her grip on Alexander. Perfect timing. We were just reminiscing. He and I still have so many memories left unresolved. Clara's face drained of color. Her heart plummeted. Alexander shot up from his chair. Clara, don't misunderstand. I was just. But Clara had already turned away, her trembling hand gripping the doorframe. The only thought echoing in her head. He chose the woman who belongs in his world. I never had a place here. That night, Clara sat in her room, cradling Lily as the child slept peacefully. Moonlight spilled in, glinting off her silent tears. She remembered it all. Laughter in the park, shared dinners, Alexander's eyes when he held Lily. They had felt real, but maybe it was only a fleeting dream. Enough, she told herself. I won't let us be humiliated any longer. This time, when she began packing, there was no hesitation. When Alexander heard Clara was leaving, he rushed to find her. In the hall, he blocked the doorway, his eyes wild with panic. Listen to me. Whatever you saw with Isabella, it's not what you think. I only wanted to end it once and for all. Clara looked at him, her tear-reddened eyes firm. Mr. Cole, I'm just a maid. Please let me go with what little dignity I have left. Clara, for the first time, his voice cracked with desperation. Do you really think I care about status? Yes, because that's your world. Clara cut in, her voice breaking. And I don't belong here. She pulled her suitcase and walked away without looking back. Clara! Alexander's shout echoed through the cold, vast hall. But silence answered him. He stood frozen, his hand clenched white. For the first time, Alexander Cole, the man who always controlled everything, was powerless, watching the woman and child slip away. The Cole mansion had never felt so cold. No sound of a child's laughter, no quiet footsteps of Clara cleaning the hallways. When Alexander stepped into the garden and saw the empty stone bench, his chest tightened. Every afternoon, Lily used to sit there with her doll, Lucy. Every giggle had once chased away his loneliness. Now there was only silence. He knew he had made a mistake, a terrible one, letting Clara and Lily walk away, wrapped in bitter misunderstanding. And so he decided he would find them, no matter what it took. Alexander drove through neighborhoods he had never set foot in before. He stopped at corner shops, asked strangers. A young woman with a little girl, about 6 years old, carrying an old doll. Have you seen them? Most shook their heads. Some gave him skeptical looks. But Alexander didn't give up. His mind replayed Clara's voice. Please let me go with what little dignity I have left. Her tear-filled eyes haunted him. Rain poured hard against the windshield. His hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. His heart pounded as if squeezed by an invisible fist. And then, it happened. At an intersection, a truck skidded out of control. Tires screeched. Headlights flared through the storm. Alexander tried to swerve, but it was too late. The impact slammed into his car, spinning it violently. Metal screamed. Glass shattered. Then stillness. News of the accident reached Clara quickly. A neighbor whispered, I heard Mr. Cole's been in an accident. He's at the Central Hospital. Clara went numb. Her heart clenched, her hand gripping Lily's tightly. In that instant, all her anger, all the hurt, dissolved. What remained was fear. Fear of losing him. Mom, will he be okay? Lily's voice trembled, her eyes glistening. Clara couldn't answer. She only squeezed her daughter's hand and rushed to hail a cab. The emergency ward was illuminated by harsh white lights. Clara stood in the hallway, her pulse racing so hard it felt like her chest might burst. The doors stayed shut. Each minute dragged on like an eternity. Lily sat in her lap, clutching Lucy, whispering a shaky prayer. Please make him better. He promised to keep Lucy clean. Finally, the doors opened. A doctor removed his mask, voice steady. He's out of danger. We'll move him to recovery soon. Family can visit in a few minutes. Clara nodded over and over, tears streaming freely. When Alexander opened his eyes, the blinding hospital lights blurred everything. Slowly, shapes came into focus. And then he saw. Clara and Lily were right by his bedside. Lily was the first to rush forward, her face wet with tears. Mister, you scared me so much. Alexander lifted a trembling hand, stroking her hair. Pain seared through his body, but his heart eased when he saw them safe. He turned his head. Clara's eyes were red, her face pale but tender, achingly beautiful. His voice rasped, weak yet resolute. Clara, I don't need a maid. I need you. And the little one. The words shattered the last wall between them. Clara broke into sobs, her shoulders shaking. She clutched his bandaged hand and pressed it to her cheek. I thought I had no place in your life, but when I heard you were hurt, I realized I can't live without you. A single tear slid down Alexander's face. He squeezed her hand, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Then, don't ever leave again. Lily threw her arms around them both, crying and laughing all at once. Mom's not allowed to leave anymore. We're a family now, right, mister? Alexander looked at the little girl, then at Clara. For the first time, his eyes glowed with a complete, unguarded warmth, the kind he had never known before. That night, Clara stayed by his hospital bed, holding his hand. For the first time, she let herself believe in happiness. Not a fleeting dream, but something real. And in her heart, she kept hearing his words echo. I need you. And the little one. The day Alexander was discharged from the hospital, the Cole mansion seemed to have been reborn. No longer did it carry its usual chill, no longer the heavy silence that had once made visitors uneasy. Instead, the halls rang with voices, staff chatting freely, the housekeeper humming softly, and above all, Lily's gleeful laughter as she dashed through the corridors. Mister, today we have to celebrate. Lily tugged on Alexander's arm the moment he stepped into the grand foyer, his hand still wrapped in fresh bandages. Alexander, smiling faintly, asked, Celebrate what exactly? A doll tea party, but this time with real cakes, real flowers, and even a very special guest. She darted a mischievous look at Clara, grinning ear to ear. Clara, standing behind them, flushed scarlet. She couldn't stop her daughter's innocent schemes, but she also couldn't bear to extinguish such joy. That afternoon, the back garden was transformed. On the little wooden table, Lily and Edith, the housekeeper, arranged plates of sweet pastries, real glasses filled with juice, and a vase of fresh roses at the center. Lucy, the old cloth doll, was placed in the seat of honor, wearing a new bow that Clara had stitched the night before. Done, Lily declared proudly, hands on her hips. This is going to be the grandest doll tea party ever. When Alexander and Clara arrived, Lily straightened like a perfect hostess. Please take your seats. Alexander looked around, and for the first time he felt his mansion was truly alive, not from fireplaces or chandeliers, but from laughter, flowers, and the presence of the two souls who had given him back his heart. He sat down, his dark suit sharp against the soft garden light. Clara slipped into the chair beside him, her eyes bright with happiness and a hint of shyness. Please enjoy some tea. Lily poured juice into his glass. And the cakes, Mom and I made them. Alexander raised the glass and nodded. Better than any banquet I've ever attended. Clara laughed softly, shaking her head. Mr. Cole, don't exaggerate. He turned to her, gaze warm, steady. I'm not exaggerating, I mean it. Her breath caught. She looked away quickly, but her heart thudded hard in her chest. The party unfolded with bursts of laughter. Lily invented rules. Mr. has to clink glasses with Lucy, Mom has to sing a children's song, and whoever finishes their tea gets an invisible candy. Alexander, once the embodiment of cold pride, obediently followed every rule. His serious expression, as he clinked a tiny glass with the doll, made Clara cover her smile with her hand. Edith, watching from a distance, dabbed her eyes. At last, she thought, the ice castle has melted. As the sun dipped low, golden light spilled across the garden. Suddenly, Alexander rose. He stepped behind Clara, then dropped to one knee beside the doll's little table. Clara gasped. Alexander! From his pocket, he drew out a small velvet box. Inside gleamed a simple ring, elegant and bright beneath the fading light. His voice was deep, steady. Clara, I once thought all I needed in life was wealth and power. But you and Lily have shown me what family truly means. I don't want to be your employer. I want to be your husband and her father. The world seemed to pause. Clara's eyes filled with tears, her throat tight with emotion. Beside them, Lily clapped and shouted, "Say yes, Mom! Say yes!" Clara covered her face, sobbing softly. Then she nodded, whispering, "Yes, I will." A rare, radiant smile lit Alexander's face. He slid the ring onto her finger, then pulled both mother and daughter into his embrace. Lily leapt with joy, hugging Lucy tight and shouting, "Lucy, we have a dad now!" And so, around a small doll's table, this time filled with real cakes, real flowers, and a heartfelt proposal, a new family was born. In the glow of sunset, laughter carried across the garden, and there at the doll's tea party, the ice castle finally became a true home.